It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders, as you can see if you are watching on YouTube, and we're about to introduce if you're on the listening platform in short order. We have a special guest on today's episode. Alan, I feel like it's better suited that you introduce today's guest, one of your peers. Might as well let you do the introduction.
I don't know if peer. I don't know if I qualify as peer. How about one of the greats on the Steelers beat, Jim Wexell of Steel City Insider, one of the guys that I do share space with in the Steelers media room.
There we go.
But is one of the best to ever do it, and someone that I've looked up to for a long time. Glad to have you on with us, Jim.
Well, those are some powerfully kind words. Thank you. I thought you were just going to say our resident senior citizen or elder statesman, all-time great. You're definitely a peer, Alan. You're definitely a peer. You've come in and you've done a great job.
And a fellow Irwin resident. So we got that connection as well. Westmoreland County guys got to stick together. We want to talk about Wex's new book for sure today, but I wanted to bring up something first that happened today, and obviously sad news, the passing of Tim Rooney, who was a scout for the Steelers back in the 1970s, and I think probably someone who I don't really think a lot of people know about or was aware of his contributions. And I know you've got a great mind for the history of the Steelers, so I just wanted to pick your brain about Tim Rooney and his impact on this franchise and what you know about him.
Yeah, I wrote about Tim a bit in On the Clock, a book 2 years ago, a bunch of draft stories. Tim was hired. The chief didn't get along with his dad, Duke. There was a problem between them. I'm unsure what it was, but the chief wanted to show that he was above petty squabbles. He hired his son, and Tim's most famous scouting story, anyway, that I'm aware of, involves Jack Lambert. There's the famous Jack Lambert tale of him diving in the gravel at Kent State when Art Rooney Jr. was there. But Art Rooney Jr. was there because of a story Tim Rooney told him. Tim Rooney had gone the previous spring to scout an Olympic sprinter at Kent State. And he heard a story about this kid Lambert who had over 200 tackles as a junior. And they were on their way to a bowl game if they won the MAC championship. Well, the week before the MAC championship game, the quarterback of Kent State was suspended. And the coach said, and he was a key to the team. And the coach said, we'll unsuspend you if you do this series of 100-yard bear crawls, 100 have to be 100 laps, and some really brutal exercise. And the quarterback said, no, thanks, I'll stay suspended. And Jack Lambert flipped on and said, you're doing this, pal, or I'm going to kick your ass, right? And I'll help you. And Lambert helped him, carried him. He dragged him to the finish line. They got across the end zone on the 100th 100-yard crawl or whatever they were doing. And the quarterback was puking and Lambert was puking. And Lambert said, I'm going to kick your ass anyway. Well, Rooney heard that story, and they did. They won the MAC championship, went to the bowl game, played Earl Bruce's Tampa with John Matuzak and Freddie Solomon was the quarterback, lost to Tampa. Tampa was on their way to being the Miami Hurricanes, some kind of rule in Florida, and all the recruiting in Florida, the fertile ground. Well, Tampa's administration said, no, we're not going that direction. And Miami Hurricanes picked up the mantle and had the great, 2-3 decades that they had. But anyway, Tampa beat Kent in the bowl game, and Tim Rooney went back and told that story. You better go get a look at this Lambert dude. And Art Rooney Jr. went, and then it rained at practice. They went onto the gravel, and Jack Lambert dove at it was a running play, and he dove just to touch the guy. And it wasn't the gravel diving in the gravel that made Art Rooney Jr. so impressed. It was the fact that for the rest of practice, Jack was picking out, and it's his birthday today. Jack was picking out gravel out of his shins and knee without flinching, just grabbing it out of there and continuing to play. And Art Rooney said, we're going to take a deeper look at this guy. So that's my Tim Rooney story. I wish I knew more. I would have looked more up. There's more in the book, but I've forgotten some of it.
That's a fantastic story. And I think, it's a great way to talk about the scouting process a little bit too, is just like, you go to see somebody else, you're there to see somebody else. Then you see, somebody do something out of the ordinary, and it's kind of the value of showing up and doing your job. And
right.
And Tim Rooney did it for a long time too. Went on to work for the Giants and was a big part of their front office when they won the Super Bowls in the 80s and 90s. So a long and successful career, and obviously our thoughts with his family and everyone. But yeah, that's a fun story, and I think a part of Steelers history that probably a lot of our audience, which skews a little bit younger, probably not aware of. So I thought,
including me,
you want today, that'd be a good timing for that. And like you said, Jack Lambert's birthday also.
Yeah, very pertinent today.
Yeah, I'm really tempted. If I had the courage, I'd call him, wish him happy birthday, and say, Jack, let's do that book again. I've asked him twice, and I've gotten him in 15 years. This is a great story, but I'm not to take too long, and we want to get to your stuff. But he said no the first time, but he did give me an interview. The second time I called him 15 years later, and he said, "Didn't we talk about this?" I said, "Yeah, 15 years ago." And apparently, the Steelers told me you were mailing something in my house. I've been waiting for 2 years for it. What was that about? I thought maybe you wanted to do the book. He said, "I'll tell you what. If I do decide to do the book, you're my guy. Is that good enough for?" I said, "For now, it's good enough." So I probably should call him tonight, wish him happy birthday, and sneak in there with another.
Still ready on your end. No hesitation here.
Right.
Well, Wex, we wanted to talk to you about your latest book, which was written with just a giant of a personality and the late Craig Wolfley. Tell me a little bit about how this all came together and what that project was like for you.
Yeah, that was like 20 years ago. Excuse me. Wolf sent me a couple chapters. He says, "Hey, Wex, read this and let me know what you think. See if I should, continue writing and develop it into a book." I said, I read it and I was really impressed. I said, "Wolf, this is really good." I said, at the time, I'm unsure of the 80s Steelers and how much that'll sell. Early in the 2000s, we were just getting past the 80s Steelers. Now I think there's a lot of good for the young guys. I mean, and he has Lambert stories. He has Jack Ham stories, things like that. He came in 1980. But anyway, I was so impressed with Wolf's chapters that I hired him to write a weekly column for Steel City Insider. And he did that for 20 years. And, he worked his way up and went from sideline reporter to the press box. And recently, Triumph Publishing, I've written a few books for them. The On the Clock book is one of them. They called and they were wondering if I knew of a guy who has spanned a long time and maybe is in the media and could write a book, a formula book that they call If These Walls Could Talk. And they had suggested Bill Hillgrove, which I think would be a great book. But I thought, since Craig writes for me and I know he can write, and he was a player and in the media and spanned about 40 years, I thought he would be a better choice. And they agreed. And so I brought it up with Wolf and we agreed. And I was assumed by Triumph Publishing that I would ghostwrite for the athlete. Okay, well, I knew Wolf would write a lot of it, but we had plans to do interviews. I would interview him, and I would write some of it. And anyway, during the season, he's sending me chapters, and I'm thinking it's just one chapter, but there were 10 attachments to the email I didn't open. So the end of the season comes, and it's time to start writing the book because it's due March 10th, the manuscript, 70,000 words. And Triumph called us for a conference call and said, hey, how's the project coming along? I said, hey, I got to tell you, I didn't know Wolf had this many chapters done already. I just opened my attachments this week. This book's almost done. I said, I'm stealing money. I'm not ghostwriting anything. I'm just reading and touching it up. And I said, I don't think I should take as much money as I've agreed to take. And Wolf said, no, Wex, no. That's how Wolf, Wolf, Alan. I mean, that's how Wolf is, all class, all character. And plus, he liked me as an editor. So we agreed to do the same. And they said, okay, let's wrap this up by March 10th. And Wolf he had 64,000 words done. And then he got sick, and he said, I'm going to have to put this off, Wex. Maybe Faith, his wife, could find a couple chapters, and we could write a foreword and write acknowledgments, and we could round this out into 70,000 words. 20 days later, Wolf died. He died on March 10th, the day it was due. So, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of ghosts in the machine here. He always wanted to do this book. These were his memoirs. He got it done during the season, and the day the book was due, he died. And it was 20 days after he was diagnosed with cancer. So it went fast, and it surprised us all because we thought he was turning the corner, and he was convinced he would be okay. So Faith, Faith, his widow, she wanted to carry on, and they're very spiritual, very religious, very Christian, and she is so strong that she thinks this is just a pause before she sees Craig again. So she's very strong, very admirable. She's the one that calms you down and stops you from crying at the funeral. And she introduced me to Ronnie, his brother, who sounds and talks and has the idiosyncrasies. If you've met Ronnie, it sounds like you're talking to Craig. And I'm at the funeral home. I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't right. And I'm tearing up, and he's making me feel better. And Craig's mother, Hootie, Hooty, she came over and she talked to me, and they're all excited about the book. And I didn't want to talk book at the funeral home, right? I didn't want to talk business. Even though we had business to discuss, I told Faith, I'm going to send you an email next week. And she goes, oh, we're going to continue with this book. And she brought up business. Very strong family. Very, he introduced me to his son, Kyle. There's a great chapter about Kyle. And this isn't just about his family, but they're so close. And there are so many sporting stories involving his family. Kyle was an Army Ranger, and Kyle gave such a great eulogy. I asked Kyle if he could write the afterword. We've made it into a special book, including families. Ronnie Wolfley wrote the foreword. Faith wrote the acknowledgments. CJ, his son, prepared these lists of Wolf's favorite food, where he ordered his favorite pizza in the Pittsburgh area. Some neat stuff. But there's, Craig wrote 64,000 words of just terrific football and life stories. And, it has Jack Lambert, Joe Green, Jack Ham. It goes back to his days where he lifted weights with who was the Jim Burt, the nose tackle for the New York Giants. Was that his name, Jim Burt? Yeah. With Jim Burt. Yeah, and because they grew up together, and they had his name escapes me. There's a great chapter, the world's strongest man, not just football players. Not Wolf became the world's strongest man behind John Kolb in a football player related thing, but the world's strongest man used to lift with Wolf. Here's a story about how he had 900 pounds on his back and stumbled, and Wolf stepped into to spot him, and Bert were spotting, and the guy collected his balance, and Wolf said, "I don't know how I would have spotted him. I would have gone down too." But just some great Wolfley stories. It's coming out in September, and it's available for pre-sale at Amazon. And it helps us. I don't know that you get a bargain on the pre-sale, but it helps us. It helps the publisher figure out how many books to sell and how many bookstores are involved and how many books each bookstore gets. So it will help us if you buy the pre-sale at Amazon. If you just go into Amazon and search Craig Wolfley, If These Walls Could Talk will come up.
Yeah, I'll put the link to it as well in the description. I don't like to do this. I like to stay engaged in the conversation, but as you were talking there, I was like, I got to make sure I get my hands on one of these copies. So I actually pre-ordered the book as we were having this discussion here.
Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned Wolf's mother being at the funeral. I got to meet her there as well. What an incredible woman she is. Had a fantastic conversation with her. I think the thing about Wolf that makes him such a good topic for a book like this is you think about, you just look at the biography, right? And you're like, okay, a football player, did some other stuff that tough guys do, right? Involvement with the world's strongest man, and he was boxing, and he ran a gym, and you think, well, this guy's probably a meathead, right? But he was so much more than that. Once you got to know him, that there was so much that went beyond with Wolf, that I think that's why he's such a fascinating person. I think that's why he engaged with so many different kind of people, is that he could talk to you no matter who you were. And I think that's why I'm really excited to read this as well. Did you think back when you first met him, or when you were covering him when he was a young offensive lineman, hey, this is a guy that I'm going to write a book with someday? Or when did your perspective on this idea change to something that you were interested in doing?
Well, I didn't cover him. I've been covering for 31 years. This is my 31st year.
Okay. So,
that's how old Wolf
right
is.
on the line there. Okay.
Yeah. I was impressed right away. I didn't know he would have time to write a book. It all came together so fast, and he had a lot in his file already done. I do want to impress upon everybody that, for one thing, I think kids should read it. I wrote the Polamalu biography with that in mind. Not that it's simple. It's not for 12-year-olds, but it's for 12-year-olds. I mean, 12-year-olds like to read an F-bomb too, right? I mean, it's not, if you're going to interview Joey Porter, you're going to have a little salt in your book. But I wanted them to learn about Troy, just how he grew up and overcame things, and how he ate, how he trained, how he thought. I think it's just so valuable for kids. And the same exact thing with Wolfley. He talks about watching tape. He talked about eating and resting on game day and not resting, and all the things he learned about becoming an athlete. Mind in the muscle, mind in, he was a big jujitsu guy too. That's his world. I would have to reread the chapters again to get to actually come up with specifics. But as I was editing it, I thought this is great for kids too. I know it's difficult for parents to make that decision, but this is perfect for 12-year-olds, and it's perfect for us too. It spans the era of Wolf walking into the rock pile. If you remember War Memorial Stadium in Buffalo, they called it the rock pile. The first time it was a Monday night game, he walked in as a fan. I think he was 12 years old. And that's when he knew he wanted to be a football player. And it spans all the way to Marquise Pouncey's first practice, Ben Roethlisberger's tackle, he was a sideline reporter. James Harrison's 100-yard return, he was a sideline reporter. Some nuances and tidbits in there. The story I like to tell is when he was a rookie at training camp in 1980, he's looking across the line of Hall of Famers on defense, and he was loving it because it was training camp. It was hot. The Hall of Famers aren't that interested, right? Wolfley is. He's a rookie, and he got in on the first team line against the first team, and he had a play called, and this was where he was going to make his mark, right? He had a play called where he was going to pull, and Jack Ham was his target outside, right? So Wolfley's pulling, and Ham's not there, and he's thinking, where is he? Boom! Wolfley gets knocked on his ass, right? He looks up. It's Jack Ham smiling at him. And Wolfley could not figure this out because Jack Ham didn't want to practice that day like Wolfley did. And Wolfley outweighed him by 70, 80 pounds. He still couldn't to this day understand how Jack Ham was that much stronger than him. The first preseason game, he was standing on the sideline when Mel Blount dumped a receiver on his head right next to the sideline. He said the strength and power just overwhelmed him at the time of a cornerback doing that. So, I mean, he goes from the greats all the way to the James Harrison and Ben Roethlisberger, today's greats, and Marquise Pouncey. I'm sure there's some tales after Pouncey's rookie year, but that's all that comes to mind right now.
I have a question in terms of, obviously it's a different type of writing. Covering the team is one thing, writing the books that you do is another. When did that become something that you wanted to do, and what is kind of the goal with it overall?
Well, I before you write a book, it's about the money. maybe I could break through here. Winston Churchill hit it big at 66. So I'm 64. I'm still plying away. But as you write, it becomes more precious to you. It becomes more important than the money, right? What can I leave? Now I've got Counting the Wolfley book, which Craig wrote. I edited. I wrote an introduction. That I guess that counts as my 7th book. And I have one more book in mind, and we talked about Jack Lambert. But you want to leave a legacy, right? And like Alan gave me all that respect at the beginning of the show. I'm starting to get that a little bit. It's nice. Before you just have to, Alan, and Zach, too. It's a fist fight on the way up. And as long as you don't throw any fists, like I stupidly did at times, it makes your career easier, and you find yourself finding more success. You get into your 40s and 50s, and the young guys start coming up, and they start showing you respect, and it's really cool. And you try to, in turn, mentor is a little strong, but help them any way they can. And we got a really good group of young guys that come through the media right now. I really enjoy it. So you want to leave a legacy, and you want to go down as a pretty good writer. And so when you look in the Barnes and Nobles and you see 3 or 4 books, and you're like, wow, I guess I did do that. You just put your head down and you go for the money at first, because that's the motivation. I mean, Alan, you're raking in all the money now, so you don't. Yeah. But yeah, it's not all that easy just covering the team daily and making money. And it's not the most stable job, journalism. So anyway, once you get past doing it for money, then you start thinking, I want to do this for my legacy. So.
What's your process like when you work on a book? Do you just immerse yourself in it and shut everything else out, or you just work at a little bit at a time? How do you, like, that's the thing about writing a book that I look at, I'm like, I write a lot of words every day, but 70,000 on one subject, that feels intimidating to me.
Yeah. If you're smart like Wolf, you do a little bit during the season. If you're dumb like me, you pack it all together in 2 months, but you don't panic. You just start writing. You just start. And I don't like to go more than an hour and a half a day on the book, because I'm going to have to write a little bit for my site too. An hour and a half is good. After that, you get stale. Maybe a half hour to edit the next day what you wrote yesterday, and then go back into 1,500 more, 1,500 words, hour and a half, 1,500 words, whatever. But you just keep plowing ahead. I think 1,500 comes to mind because I want to, when I'm in my 2-month, like the last book I wrote in total, Pittsburgh Steelers, an illustrated timeline, a coffee table book. I divided up how many they wanted, and I took over 2 months. That's every day. How many words per day? You put it on your calendar. At the end of the week, you find yourself ahead of the pace, and you circle that in your calendar. And man, you're in your own world. But you don't let it overwhelm you. You know, just stay the course. And it happens. And you'll think of you go out walking is the best way. And I do a lot of working out. Alan, we talk about this all the time. But when I go walking the dog is the best way to get a lead for the next day. That's all you need is a lead. And because you better have your research around you. And so then that leads you into your research.
Maybe she go on.
I'm sorry, Zach.
No, go ahead.
I was just talking about my last book, Pittsburgh Steelers, an illustrated timeline. They're trying to ramp that up. That came out last Christmas time, so they want to hit training camp. And I'll be at St. Vincent College Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. at the St. Vincent College bookstore, signing that book. It's a beautiful coffee table book, a history of the Steelers. I'm really proud of it. And so anybody out here in Westmoreland County or Irwin, come on out to St. Vincent College Friday at 4 before they shut it down for training camp.
There we go. And that can be picked up like a hard copy of books that like a Barnes and Noble, you're saying?
Yeah, that can be at Barnes and Nobles, but I'll sign them and, put a little note in there for whomever you're buying it for. And it's a beautiful gift. I know it's not Christmas time, or really it's training camp gift, I guess. I don't know, but get you ready for football season. Yeah.
I had a couple things pop in my mind there. The one was going to be a joke. You said going walking for there it is right there. There we go. Yeah. The one was going to be a joke. You said you'll go walking for a lead. I was just saying maybe you should actually do a run with Bo Marchionte to get.
Think about how many leads he should have by now. He's got a couple encyclopedias worth.
Yeah, I mean, if I start running, I'm thinking about surviving. I'm not going to think about my leads. That's for walking. Bo, on the other hand, who, what is it, 10,200 days now or something?
Yep. Yeah, well over 10,000 at this point.
One thing about Bo, that he jogs at least 3 miles a day for 10,000 straight days, 26 years, right? Mm-hmm. 3 miles a day, and he's ranked 74th in the world. That list is for people who've jogged 1 mile a day. So Bo could be in the top 10 in the world.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care. He doesn't know. It's just his minimum is 3 miles. Anyway.
Okay. I respect it. The other part about that was serious. Was 34-64, basically the same thing, but you've been covering the team for a little bit here. Wanted to know how you've seen the media space transition. Obviously now, this isn't something doing a podcast right now that would have been a thing, obviously, when you first were covering the team. So just like the transition you've kind of seen take place with the way the team is covered.
Well, training camp, do we even get any interviews at training camp? I mean, that's brutal. Training camp is brutal anymore. You used to be able to get them up at lunch, and now it's just you have to get them in a mob. And I'm not a mob guy. Alan, you're a one-on-one guy too. You just like one-on-ones. And in the locker room, there's an etiquette that breaks down every few years when new people come. And
somebody has to be rude to reinforce it.
Well, the etiquette is if you have a one-on-one, don't, leave the guy alone. Now, I'm not talking about after games, right?
Yeah.
during the week in the locker room, one-on-one. Because if it's 2-on-1, then the whole mob comes. Well, somebody said to me last, was it Caboli? Said, these one-on-ones aren't happening. I tried a one-on-one and I got mobbed. I said, hey, you gotta remind them it's a new group. I said, I used to remind. That was those were part of the problems. I like being told.
But I got somebody a couple of years ago who was kind of newer, and in the moment you say, hey, get off my lawn, and then you got to find a way to come back and be like, hey, you didn't know, you're new, you're trying, I'm just trying to protect my space here. But that's definitely a part of it. I like the podcast thing. This is our second year we've been doing this, and I guess coming up on 3 years, right, Smitty?
Yep.
And I didn't know how it was going to go, how I was going to take to it, but I really enjoy this way to connect with the audience. I think it's a lot of fun. I look forward to doing this every day. I know you do one as well. You like the podcast thing?
Yeah, I do. We do it once a week. I like having the guests on, and I like it. Sometimes it can substitute for a story, and I think I've done my Tim Rooney duty tonight.
There you go. There you go.
The other thing about training camp is after practice, sometimes you could get a player, and you still in theory can, but you have to wait for the fans to get that. So we're behind the fans now. Even they get all their interviews. They do interview them while they're getting autographs, but we have to wait for all that to end. And then by then the players are, I'm done. I'm out of here. So it's difficult. And, the Steelers have a lot of people on their media team. And so there's a microphone everywhere. You go through the locker room, and before you can get home, it's on the internet. The YouTube from the Steelers.com. And then, the aggregation sites pick it up. And I haven't even transcribed my tape of my own interview, and it's already out there. So that's the difference. You just have to not let that bother you. And you have to put more opinion in your own. And that's what's going to save us from AI. Opinion. We're still humans. And if our opinions are respected, then people will wait for our excuse me, our story.
There you go. Yeah.
I battled some throat issues during the past 6 months, Alan. So
yeah, Wex has been on and off the injured list, but we're glad you're doing well now.
I am doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great to see.
Good stuff. Alan, you got anything else?
No, I think that's it, Smitty.
All right. Well, Jim, we appreciate you joining the pod here. As always, when we have a guest on, we want to have them plugged wherever people can find them, find their work. Of course, in your case, we're going to put the link down below. I found out I can just search your name on Amazon and all the books come up. So I'm going to put that link as just so people can find all the books in one place. But tell the people they can find you.
Well, put JimWexell.com in there. You can get my books there, Steeler Nation too. It's not on Amazon. Pull them all hardcover, and then you can contact me if you want me to write a note. But I autograph all those books. The signing again, St. Vincent College, Friday from 4 to 6, St. Vincent College bookstore, and that's Friday from 4 to 6. And you can get me at Steel City Insider if you want to read my stuff. But I appreciate you guys having me on and allowing me this platform. I do really appreciate it. It was good hearing from you, Alan.
We appreciate having you. It's a nice little summertime get together, and then we'll be seeing you at training camp. So that'll be fun. It's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Very different than a typical Steelers afternoon drive here, by the way. So
yeah,
this is good stuff.
That's good.
Alan, tell people they can find you.
Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. You can go there and read the words so I can get paid. I don't have any books yet. Maybe someday. But no,
maybe we should write a book.
Just together. The regular Steelers content over there at SteelersNow.com. You can sign up for SN Plus, get access to members-only content, and an ad-free reading experience that anyone can. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. here on the YouTube platform. That's free, and it helps us continue to grow this podcast and reach a larger audience. We have 15,982 subscribers. That is a famous number in Steelers history. Wex, we play a little game with our subscriber count. We just use those last 2 digits, and we pick a player that comes to our mind with those last 2 numbers. You got a Steelers 82. I mean, there's a very obvious one out there, but do you have a Steelers 82 in your history books there that comes to mind?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the obvious one and tell a little story behind John Stallworth. You know, he and Lynn Swan, seniors in college, were both 22.
Okay.
Isn't that something? So they both get to the rookie camp and they want 22. I don't know. Maybe one of them had it temporarily in the spring or something, but they both wanted 22, and we're told, we can't do that. So Swan, first round draft pick, took 88. That was his variation of 22. Stallworth's variation of 22 was 82.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
That's all I got.
There's been some other, like Yancey Thigpen, very good receiver, underappreciated at 482.
Yeah.
Randall, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's cool. I loved Yancey Thigpen. Yeah, I loved Yancey. Yeah. That was when I learned to not go around on Friday and ask the injured players, how their injury was. Yancey, if you remember, had that hamstring that lasted all year. And I was young, man. It was my second year, I think, 96 or 97, third year. And every Friday I wanted to go around and get the injury report. Yancey got so tired of me because he couldn't answer whether the hamstring was going to heal. Nobody ever knows until they. And I just stopped doing that because you become the injury guy. Here comes the injury guy. So I stopped bothering people about injuries. I see young guys doing it. They're so worked up, go around getting all the injury information for their weekend reports.
Yeah.
Not me. I'm not the injury guy.
Right then and there it ended.
I gotta dig deep here, but I'll go. My guy, my I don't know if namesake is the right word, but Wesley Saunders, very short-term tight end, was number 82. That's my,
Steven Sims as well, just a couple of years ago.
82. There you go.
482 as well. You can find me, of course, everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. If you're listening to this podcast somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok. And genuinely, I enjoy doing this podcast every single day, but just for the stories alone, genuinely, one of my favorite episodes that we've done was right here today. So, Jim, can't thank you enough for jumping on and joining for us. It was a lot of fun. But thanks to everybody again in the audience. Appreciate you guys as always. For Alan, for Jim, this has been another Steelers Afternoon Drive.